started, guys. Before we get into your presentation, I want to, just give a few messages to everybody. First of all, to our audience, please let us know which of these options that the poll must have appeared to you now. Which of these options best describes your role today? So let's see how many of these we have. Okay. I'm going to move forward and then come back to the poll in a second. I just want to thank everybody who's here for making the PreSales Collective possible. I've been part of the PreSales Collective since the 2020 when the first lockdown kicked in. And I was, with a lot of time just stuck at home, I needed to find something to learn and connect with people, and the PreSales Collective has proven to be great on that. So we are the people that make the PreSales Collective, everybody that contributes, everybody that learns something, that can share that knowledge. So I really thank you guys for being a part of this. We have just launched our member hub. If you guys haven't seen it yet, please go ahead and check it out. You're going to find all sorts of information there. So if you're already on pre-sales or you're just starting in the industry, make sure you check our website, you check the member hub, and you stay on top of our events. So let's move forward. Let's try to get the most of today's webinar. We have this amazing team with us here. These guys come with a lot of experience, a lot of things to share with us. So make sure you ask your questions on the Q&A section. We obviously encourage you to send out your comments through the chat. But if you have specific questions, just for us to be able to track them better, please use the Q&A. You're going to find there on Zoom the chat and the Q&A options. Okay, so make sure you participate. Keep sending your comments on the chat and your questions through the Q&A. So I'm just gonna pass it on to the guys, so they will start their presentation. So before you start, Ed, Sean, and Michael, if you can just present yourselves to the audience, and
sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Mike, if you want to just bring it up while we do that.
Will do. Go ahead, Ed, and I'll bring up the deck.
Yep. So my name is Ed Schmuckler, and I'm here with Sean Lambert and Mike O'Reilly. And the topic today is obviously taking ownership of your pre-sales career. And today our story is really around the topic of harnessing the power of innovation, right? But the three of us were part of a larger group, and the story starts kind of an interesting way. We were all peers. Obviously, since this time, this was about now 2 years ago when this whole thing started, we were peers, and we were all pre-sales engineers. So interestingly enough, my career evolved. I've always wanted to get into leadership, and I loved mentoring and nurturing folks and helping people achieve their own goals in growth as part of their pre-sales careers. And so I got myself into leadership. And ironically, Mike and Sean, who I did not know when we started this whole project, over the last 2 years, ended up working for me in our organization and on our team. They don't do so today. Things change quickly in technology, but it was just an interesting kind of evolution of the story, if you will. So with that, we will kick it off.
Awesome. So I guess we're all doing a quick intro here, if I understood correctly. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Mike O'Reilly. I am a cloud staff architect at VMware. And as Ed said, I did work for him for a little bit of time, but when we all met, none of us were on the same team at the same time, but we did come together for this project that you're going to see us talk about today. But then a little bit of history that I can add in. So I've been at VMware for approximately 18 years now, and I've always been in pre-sales throughout my career. So Sean, did you want to do a quick introduction as well?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sean Lambert. I'm a principal cloud solutions architect for VMware. I've been with VMware for about 7 years, but before that, I did some consultant work. Used to be a customer, but fun fact about me: I started my IT career actually working in a call center, trying to figure out how to put computers together because my company couldn't afford to buy new ones. So I kind of learned how to take 5 bad computers and make one good one. That's how I got started in IT. Off to you, Mike.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. So today we have a pretty interesting kind of agenda. We're going to start with, building your brand, right? That's what this is all about. But we're going to do it in a way that's not going to define what it means. We're going to do it through a story. We're going to do it through something we call our journey. And we're going to kind of share what that entailed, how we started, where did we go with once our story started. What is it that we achieved? Why are we here in front of you talking about this story? Why is it important? And then we're going to pivot into, how do you take ownership of something like this so that you can actually build your brand and grow and leverage something like this? We'll do a quick recap of everything we kind of talked about. And what we'd like to do is leave some time toward the end to really have folks ask us questions and do some Q&A with everyone. So with that, as you kind of see the phrases here appearing on the screen, right? These phrases have all become synonymous with growing your career, right? The hardest part that a lot of folks find is like, how do you actually start? The phrases here, I'm sure we've all heard over the course of the time that we've been working. Managers use these phrases a lot to tell their teams on what they need to do to get to the next level. But the hardest part isn't understanding this phrase. The hardest part is like, how do you actually translate it into something that's actionable? Like when somebody says go build your brand, what does that mean? Like, how do you give back to your team? How do you make an impact, right? And these are all things that the three of us have been kind of told over the years. And we've actually done a lot of soul searching, and we've struggled with some of these things. And our story that we're going to go through is going to give you kind of an example of how we fell into something and we used it to grow and build our brand and to give back to the organization. And we continue to do so. I mean, the very fact that we're presenting to you today is part of us giving back through what we've learned. You never stop, right? And so one of the things I will say, right, it's, pre-sales, right? There's the sales side and there's also the technical side, right? And typically sales folks of all kinds, whether you're technical or just pure sales, we tend to be problem solvers. We tend to have a problem, which is trying to connect a customer with a solution and convince them that this is the best type of solution. And so what we find, but what I found is that we're not so good at problem solving our own careers, like to take an idea and to translate it beyond that mark of an idea. And that's kind of what I hope, and we hope as part of this presentation, is to kind of inspire you all through our journey to think about the ideas that you've had. And again, an idea doesn't have to be something that you invent or write code or anything like that. There's different ways to accomplish this. But the idea is to kind of inspire you through our story that you can do something similar. And so moving forward, Mike is going to kick off our journey. Thanks, Mike.
All right, thanks, Ed. Yep, I wanted to talk about that journey, and especially in the context of pre-sales. This is a journey, and your career is that journey. It's the experiences that you have while you're on that journey. Your career is not the destination, although there are many points along your career that are interim destinations. But what we're going to talk about today is our journey and what we were able to do as one of those many steps that we had along the path of our careers. We had a very unique experience in what we were able to do and what we were able to accomplish when we were presented with an opportunity. And as was briefly mentioned earlier, we were all part of a program where we were introduced to each other. We may have known each other's names and so on before, but VMware has a program that is the Office of the CTO Ambassadors and Global Field and Industry Principals, which is quite a mouthful, but it's an elite group of approximately 100 people that apply for a 2-year term in order to be a liaison between engineering and the field for pre-sales, bi-directional information sharing. And so you have to really want to go above and beyond to apply to this group and to participate in this. And there are a number of people that you'll see that we saw in this that are people that are speaking at conferences and events. They're well-known bloggers and so on that were part of our extended VMware family. And so we all got together. And as part of an annual conference, an internal conference that we were at, not only were we receiving presentations from our own engineering, but we needed to come together. We were broken up into teams that needed to come together and to come up with ideas to pitch back to the business units and so on. So this was one of the situations where after we had a full day, 12 plus hours of presentations, trying to digest as much information as we could. Then we all got together in, a lobby of a hotel, and there were, 10 to 12 of us on a team. We went around and everybody pitched their idea. And what does the group want to focus on? How do we want to communicate our ideas back to this elite group at VMware? And we settled on one of the ideas. We thought it had a lot of merit, and it was a very good idea that we were going to be able to pursue. And we went back and we had 3 minutes to pitch this idea to 100 of our peers. There was a panel, a judging panel made up of geographic CTOs, members of the mergers and acquisitions and investment team at VMware. Really, this group, they're staring at us, and we need to be able to effectively communicate our information as best as possible to defend our idea. And I got to tell you, it was really kind of a Shark Tank type of feel being up there. 3 minutes never goes so fast as when you've got that group of people looking at you. And lo and behold, our idea was selected as the winner. We won, and that was absolutely great. But that meant we needed to move forward. And what was that path forward? Because this whole experience was something that was in addition to our day job. So we were out there working as pre-sales engineers and architects, yet now we had presented to this elite group, and the leadership in our own organization had said, your idea has enough merit that there needs to be something that happens with this. So what did we do from there? Well, as it happened, one of the things that came with that winning was that we were given a budget in order to bring our idea to life. And along with that budget, luckily, came some mentorship, some guidance that we were able to receive for how do we actually functionally leverage the money that we were given in order to fully vet our idea and make sure that it could see the light of day. Now, nobody that was on the team, Sean, Ed, myself, and some others, were developers. It'd been years since we had all written code. And with that, it was identified that we needed to bring a developer on board in order to move our idea from the idea concept to actually being something that was viable. And VMware has an engineering center in Sofia, Bulgaria. And so it was identified that we needed to hire that developer in Sofia. And this is something where, being in pre-sales, we had never interviewed somebody to be a developer. We may have interviewed people to be peer engineers and architects and so on, sometimes sales, just to make sure there was a good fit. But this was a new experience. And so again, we needed to make sure that this person, they had a good fit for the vision for our idea, as well as we needed to make sure that they could actually write the code, pardon me, and integrate with the products where we needed them to. And I know that Sean and Ed will back me up on this. Google was our friend. We were out there, we were taking a look, how do we actually interview somebody about writing code when that's not our day job? Luckily, our advisors were able to help us with that, and there were tech screens that happened. And the developer, one of the developers that we interviewed actually had iOS apps available. So we were able to download the applications out of the App Store and see what they had and really get a feel for what they could bring to the table. And luckily, we were able to hire a very skilled developer who had a match with the vision for our project. But there was a number of things that happened with our project where our advisors also pointed us other directions and asked us, you know, would your project be better as a function of another larger initiative? And you know, we merged and demerged with other projects that were out there, that were inside of our own organization, because we felt that our idea could truly stand on its own merit. And we wanted to bring it to fruition as its own individual standalone concept. And so from there,
Yes,
let's
sorry,
talk about our
Michael.
achievement. Yes, please go ahead.
Before you move on, sorry to jump in. I just want to bring a very interesting question from the audience. And guys, keep the questions coming. This is great. You mentioned about mentors. I wanted to ask, how do you identify and choose a mentor? How was that process for you? And can you give some tips on things, you know, what to look for and, you know, look out for?
Well, so I'll start with that and then pass it over to Sean and Ed. As part of the program that we were participating in, that Office of the CTO Ambassadors and Global Field Principals program, when we won the competition, there was a group of mentors that was assigned to us. However, outside of that, you know, there are numerous people who can be mentors and coaches throughout your career. And while it seems a bit blunt, one of the things that I always look for is to look for people that have or have achieved what you want, because they know how to get to that point. So that is one of the things that I look for. Sean, Ed, would you guys like to chime in?
Yeah, for me, I mean, when I think of mentors, I mean, there's mentors in and out of like professional careers, right? So I first of all, I want to identify, you know, internally that there's somewhere that I want to go. And frankly, it's not my safe space. It makes me very uncomfortable. And I know I'm going to have to get comfortable if I want to achieve whatever that is. And so first I identify that I've got a need here and I have no idea how to accomplish that need. And then to Mike's point, it's understanding, you know, out in the relationships that I have of, I want to go work with that person because they're doing what I want to do, or frankly, they have a good reputation of being a good mentor, and that, you know, that they're going to reciprocate that, you know, kind of that relationship. And so for me, I'm looking not only for, you know, kind of a mentor, but also somebody that's going to coach me through the situations and the challenges that I have. But I also want to make sure that they're going to be able to give me the time. And so really, there may be times in which you think a person's a mentor or you want them to be one, but maybe you interview them just through a sidebar conversation, you realize that mentor may not be for me, might not work out, and you're going to have to go find another one. But that's kind of how I go about finding a mentor is getting out of my safe space.
Yeah, and we're going to touch a little bit more on some, you know, how do you go through this in taking your ownership, you know, taking ownership of your career. Sean actually has a small section where he kind of talks a little bit more about this, but I'll say kind of a funny fact here. So while in this particular situation, we were assigned mentors because we're part of this program, and something, you know, we bring up this program because we want you all to know that many organizations have similar programs within them, right? So you just have to knock on the door and find out. You have to be curious to ask. So there's a lot of little innovation teams and innovation groups that want to nurture that within many organizations. And I will say that not all mentors are giving you or gave us the right advice. As Mike had pointed out, there was some guidance that was given to us to maybe for us to merge as part of a larger effort. And we believed them because we didn't know any better. And then we realized that that wasn't the vision that we had. And so in mentorship, you often have to look inside and just determine if the feedback and the advice you're getting coincides with the direction that you're trying to go to. And it's not that any of these mentors were trying to derail us. They truly felt that this could help us. But this will all circle back to, us as individuals and us as a team. You have to take ownership and figure out what you want first, so that you know where you're going. And that's not always often clear. And sometimes you take a roundabout way getting there, because for us, for example, we did not know what the end looked like. And that's actually going to parlay us into the next section in terms of what do we actually achieve? I'm sure you're all dying to figure out what is this thing that we're talking about. So if it's okay, maybe we proceed there.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you, guys.
When we talk about achievements, I think of both personal and professional achievements that we have in life, and I think for all of us that are we're all here because we're in pre-sales or we want to go into pre-sales, and so when I think of pre-sales, I also think of there's certain things that we need to achieve as pre-sales to be able to hit a mark, right? But then what happens to the next quarter, the next half? You hit that one peak, and then there's another one off in the distance. You're going to go climb that one, and so one of the things that there's actually 4 things that we really pulled out of this achievement that we had and through this idea, which we'll talk about in a minute. The first one that Mike already talked about was really hiring someone for a skill set that we didn't have any idea what was even required to be good at it, right? So that took some research. But one of the things that we pride ourselves on and part of our culture where we work is really, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so one of the things that we were driven to do was to hire a good developer. But we talked about it early is we know we're going to be able to bring this person on as a contractor, but how cool would it be if they actually signed on for our company and worked long-term? And so this individual that you see, this is Yuri. Yuri is the person that we selected to be the developer. And we're all pleased as can be that 2 years later, he is now a full-fledged VMware employee. He's not contractor status, and Yuri's working on all other kinds of things there. So being able to share and lift others was something that we really felt proud of. The second thing in which Mike's going to talk about in a minute was what's called the VMware Fling. So for those of you that aren't familiar what a fling is, flings are applications or tools that have been developed by VMware employees and the VMware community for some problem that they've identified that they want to code and basically release this fling for other people in the community to use. Sometimes these flings go into products. Sometimes they just continue on as a fling and the community just leverages those tools. The third thing that this fling or that this achievement did for us is we got some additional attention at, some customer events such as VMworld, which is our annual conference that we have for our customers. We're also featured in some industry articles such as Tech Target. And so this grabbed some attention when we announced the fling. So it was fun to kind of see outside of our own pre-sale space and be able to interact with customers that we had never met, that we're not responsible for from a sales standpoint, but at least got to get that type of interaction and get that feedback. The fourth thing, which was a really big achievement for me personally, I said earlier, I want, football, right? Football and technology and putting together desktops don't exactly translate to patents. I never in a million years thought that I would ever file a patent ever in my life. And we were able to file 2 as a part of this journey that we were on. And so, out of this, there are going to be things in your career that you're going to go chase, and there's going to be outcomes to your goals that you have you'll never even thought that you achieved. But it's taking that ownership and being passionate about what you want to achieve. What they say, if you aim for the moon, you'll hit a star or 2. This is kind of what happened for me personally with this patent. We wanted something to happen with this, and then a patent came up out of it. But Mike, if you want to, just for a second, kind of high level, talk about what this fling is. I know Justin's dying to know.
Not a problem. Thanks, Sean. So we don't want to bore you with all the technical details, but what this catalyst is that we were all able to leverage is a fling called Virtual Machine Desired State Configuration, or VMDSC. And I'll just leave the technical details up here. It's available on VMware's Flings website at flings.vmware.com. And there's been a number of members of the community that have downloaded this application and are using it in their environment. But what I do want to highlight here is really that word catalyst. This is something where we were able to bring something to life. We all used this as something that it was part of our day job while we were part of this project, and there's still ongoing efforts for this. However, it's been able to, for each of us, help us to advance our careers, each in a different direction. And this was just that one thing that was able to help us do that. And it's looking for that one thing that is able to help you move forward to the next step. Now, we needed to own that. And so to talk about ownership, Sean, I believe you were going to talk about a bit more.
Yeah, and then just by way of information, I put the Fling link in the chat if you're interested to go check it out. So to Ed's point earlier, you know, we and Mike's, we had to kind of wrestle with some of the advice that we got from some of our mentors and our leaders. And so what we had to do as a group is, okay, we owned this. This was our idea. We'll take the advice that's been given to us, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to live with our decision. And so we knew that we had to own it. So just like we had to own this idea to be able to take it where we knew we wanted it to go, all of us as professionals need to own our career. We're going to get advice from different, you know, mentors and different people that we talk to are going to steer us in different directions based on their experience. And let's be honest, other people's experience doesn't always translate to our own. And so that's why having a coach and having a mentor first is really, really important. Somebody that's going to take you along, be honest with you, tell you how you need to improve, and then give you some other avenues of direction that you can take advantage of to achieve whatever, I guess, aspirations that you have. But then we kind of go to this more coaching moment, right? When I think of a coach, I think it's more of a been there, done that person who is going to take me under their wing and help me develop the skills that I need to have to be where they are and continue on. But in order to be able to do that, the first thing that a coach will normally do is sit down with you in sports is to say, okay, what do you want to achieve? How fast do you want to run? Do you want, you know, how many touchdowns do you want to score, or whatever it may be? I associate everything in my brain with sports. And so you have to associate what the coach wants, but you got to tell the coach what you want to go do. So you got to have goals. But the most important thing with goals is you got to write them down first, because in my opinion, if you don't write down what you want to do, it's more of a dream than it is a goal. When you write it down, you're starting that commitment process. But when we talk about goals, you know, there's an acronym that I learned several years ago, which is the SMART acronym. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it's when setting goals, these are the 5 things that you need to do while setting these goals. You need to make sure that your goal is specific. You need to make sure that you can measure it, whether or not you're doing well and trending towards that achievement. It needs to be something that you know that you can attain in a certain amount of time. That's why goals should always be time-based, but you also need to make sure that the goal that you have is relevant to what you want the outcome to be. So when I think of SMART goals, I also kind of think of the pre-sales, you know, notion of when we're going out and talking to our customers, we want to make sure that we are helping them solve a business problem or a technical problem, but we want those solutions to have an outcome. You want the goals that you set to also have an outcome. But I also want to remind us that it's okay if you fail. It's okay if these goals that you're setting that you have to change. I kind of equivalent the evolution of a career in pre-sales. It's kind of like flying a plane. And when you're going, you know, when we're all up in the air and there's a storm that's coming, what does the pilot have to do? They have to go around it because there's some unintended force that's coming at them. They have to adjust. I think it's important to understand that just because you don't hit the goal the first time, that's okay. You readjust, you go back to your coach, find out what you need to change. You can reach out to your mentors as well and see what other advice that they have. And then you just continue on. It's a journey, but it's important that those goals that we set, that it's something that we're comfortable with, and it's not something that we feel that we've been forced into by someone else, because we need to own it at the end of the day.
So with that, right? I mean, obviously we've given you some tools to think about in selecting a mentor, a coach, it's not always going to follow a particular multi-step process. And that's why we also chose to kind of share our story in a very different way than giving a definition and here's a 52-step process to success, right? You know, life isn't linear, right? Your career is not going to be linear. You're going to have peaks and valleys, and there's going to be times that you have to pivot. But one thing is certainly true, and that is that you have to have passion. You have to, you have to find something that you are going to enjoy. Your goals should be something that you enjoy doing, something that, you know, are going to be something that you can truly feel is going to be a part of you, that you're excited to do. Because if you lack the passion, and I'll give you an example, and this is, you know, I'm ashamed of this, and the example is about me. I grew up in Silicon Valley. I kind of made that, that statement earlier on. I saw, the whole .com situation unfold in front of my eyes. When I thought about technology and software and entrepreneurship, the only thing I had on my mind is everybody else that are people driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris and, all this money, that they're making off of stock. And so when I had this kind of false sense of, I am doing something purely for the transactional nature of to try to make money. And I've had so many mentors around me always tell me, you can't do it for the money. You've got to find something that you're passionate about. Money is always going to be a byproduct of your success, but you can't chase the money, because if you chase the money, you may never get there because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And I was always in conflict with this. And I don't know when I had the epiphany in my life of when that changed. But I started looking at things and doing things because I was excited. I often tell people, when I wake up for work, I love what I do. The day ends and it feels like an hour has passed. We all have good days and bad days. I mean, I'm a human being. I mean, there's going to be tougher days, and that's just natural. But when I look at it, from a holistic standpoint, I'm in love with what I do. And the money has always followed that because people can feel it, they see it. And it's something that we have to come to that realization that if you're doing something that you don't love and you're not passionate about, and you have to force yourself to do it, you may want to reanalyze what it is that you're doing. Okay. So if we move on, let's recap what we've kind of gone through here today. I know that our story probably, we've had this effect on some of our audiences where we share this journey, this story, and people come back to us and say, well, we don't know that we could do this. We're not developers. We're not software engineers. We don't have the opportunity to do a Shark Tank style presentation and win. But what I always tell folks is that first, there are many ways to achieve the outcomes you seek. Ours is just an example. And the reason we chose to tell our story in such a way is because what we found is that a lot of folks don't know what they need to do. There's not even an example of how you build your brand. How do you leave your mark? How do you give back to people? And so we don't have all the answers. We have an answer. And we know that one of the answers is what we lived through. And we learned so much. When we went into this, we had no idea where the end lied. In fact, many of these projects that we embarked on fail. More often of these initiatives, they get money and hiring somebody with the innovation team that we worked with at our company, they fail. And we knew that the odds were against us, but we were so interested in what we had, and we knew we had something so special that we chose, no matter what, to work on it. And we had, peaks and valleys. There were some days where we looked at each other, was it even worth it? And at the end of the day, we carried each other through the finish line, and we had a really successful finish. And it's rare. It is rare. And so we're really, really proud of it. But we also don't want to leave this presentation with people feeling like they are unique. They got lucky. Yes, we got lucky. Luck is always part of this. but anyone can do this. You need to try, because if you don't try, you will never fail. And if you don't fail, you will never learn and grow. And we were fortunate to succeed, but we failed along the way in so many ways where we had to pivot and learn, that in the end, it was the aggregate of failures that led to our success. And that's something that's really important to understand, that all organizations have a way to nurture innovation. It is the lifeblood of any company to always find ways to do something better. And so what we would like to kind of leave you with is to try to think about those things. Ask those questions of your mentors, your coaches, your managers. Don't just take it and say, okay, I got to go build my brand. Ask to see how you can give back and make it actionable. And so with that, we will transition to some Q&A and leave you all some time to hopefully get to know us a little bit better, to know that we are just average people. We are not software developers. We don't code, but we were able to come out with something. And you all could do it as well.
That's amazing, guys. Well done. I do have a few how-to questions here from the questions box. I'll start with one here that is, Michael is curious about the patent journey. So a lot of us write tools. Can you go through the journey to a patent? Chen, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So this one was interesting. So as we started iterating on the idea that we had for this fling, you start turning your business brain on a little bit, and you're like, okay, well, we already work for a software company, and what do? We try to protect all of the intellectual property that we have. So we've got something here, and if we release this out to the community and we don't protect our idea, in theory, anybody can steal it, and then it's no longer ours. So how are we going to protect this? Well, our first idea was, hey, we need a patent. So luckily enough, we have a group of attorneys and other inventors at VMware that have done this, 20, 30 times. And I'm not exaggerating by the number. They exist. And so we were able to grab some of them as a mentor and guide us through that patent process. The patent, if I had one recommendation for anybody out there that has written tools and you're thinking about sharing those tools with others, document every single thing that you have written and document the why, and make sure that you can attribute all of the things that you have done back to yourself and that you can prove it. A lot of the things that Mike and Ed and I, and as well as the rest of the team, dealt with is we actually got in some conversations with other people that were helping us. I don't know. We kind of felt like, hey, you're kind of trying to take our idea away from us and develop it as yours, but we did it. So we had to pull some of those reins back and say, this is our project. We want you to help us, but we don't want you to take it. And so that was one thing that we learned is documentation is key when you're doing these tools. But as far as the rest of the journey through the patent, we had help because first of all, you need a lawyer. And I have no idea what the rate is, but we had to leverage the lawyers to be able to write the documentation to be able to file the patent. Now, I'm sure the U.S. Patent Office has how-tos on their website, but we were very fortunate to have an attorney help us write the wording to be able to file that patent successfully.
I mean, I will also say, I mean, if once the organization feels that you have something, they're going to throw the lawyers at you to help you because they want to secure it anyway. So I feel like getting the lawyers to help us to protect our idea was not the hard part. That actually was super easy. The hard part was writing the application, making sure, in legal language, the three of us and the rest of our team were kind of like, we were thrown into these review sessions, and it's like, you have to merge technology with legal. And we've never done that before. And we're reading it. And quite honestly, I'm not sure if I was reading it in English, even though it was written in English. And so that was the hard part. But getting the help was pretty easy because once the company was like, oh my God, there's something here, they have no problem to protect the intellectual property.
And guys, let's not forget that we went through this process not once, but there were basically 4 times because we had our initial discovery where, hey, we think we've got something here. And so we went through that discovery. It was determined, yes, there is something here, but there's more than one thing. So it was determined that there were really two things that were part of our project that needed to be protected. And then the company thought that it was important enough that while we were continuing to work on the project, that a provisional patent application was filed for each one of our ideas. So we went through that initial legal discovery. Then there were the provisional patents for the two unique ideas, and then finally the two utility patents. So once we got to the end of that, I think we kind of knew where we were going with things. But like Ed said, trying to understand some of the legal documentation that came with the patent process was definitely a challenge. And so having people to guide us through that process was absolutely helpful and key to being successful.
This is great. Yeah, very good, guys. I have another question, which is really interesting because I've been through that myself, but I want to hear from you guys. How to cope with pre-sales career path together with the country migration. Any recommendations would be appreciated. So what can you guys comment on that?
And I think that's an interesting question, especially from one that's been US based their entire life. And, I can't really speak to it, but I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, there must be some anxiety, Amanda, you might be the best to answer it. There's got to be some anxiety of a new country, therefore a new culture, new social norms that you may not understand, different ways in which business is transacted. And so I know this may not be the best answer, but in my opinion, the first thing that I would want to do is to find a mentor that can help me guide through this new journey in a new country. Because I've lived overseas, and I've but not from a I guess a technical pre-sale standpoint, but I have lived overseas, and there were some tough lessons for me to learn from a social standpoint that I looked foolish in some of the ways that I interacted at the beginning, maybe cost me some relationships. But I think that's why mentors are so important, especially when you're going to go into a different country and do something like pre-sales.
Yeah, it is important to have a mentor. And I think that trying to get yourself integrated to the new culture, try to build your network. I think that the Pre-Sales Collective really helped me on that as well. I've been in Spain for 4 years now. And I was able to actually, I had developed my networking across Europe because I was working remotely for many countries, but I was only actually able to expand my networking in Spain through the Pre-Sales Collective. So it is really important to have that networking, not just for when you need a friend to recommend you or something like that, but also people to give you support. Somebody to talk to about work, somebody you can have a coffee with, and things like that. So and this was a really good question. There's another really good one in the chat.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, how do you navigate conflicting goals, your own versus your teams versus your organizations, client contact organization, etc.? How do you manage those goals when you're in a project like that?
I think that's an interesting one. I think, Ed, from your standpoint, being a manager of skilled people now, I think you got an interesting perspective there. But I mean, me personally, because it's my career and I own it, I'm always going to look at my goals first. I think it's important that I'm satisfied with what I'm doing every day and I'm going towards that goal. If the team and the organization is misaligned, right? I kind of think of, my company first, because they're the ones that allow me to provide, and I need to align to that. But I also think it's important, for example, Ed and I's relationship. It was important to me that I could have an open communication with Ed, and that Ed would be able to take any feedback I have regarding the team or the organization or frustrations with my customer, to where Ed can help me with that challenge as far as the goals that are all out there. And then I trusted in Ed that he would be able to take my concerns to the correct level of leadership to be able to speak to those misalignments and then come back down to me to help me. But I do think it's important first you set your own goals and you adhere to those, because it's all about your career and what you want to achieve. But there needs to be an open communication with your mentors, your coaches, your managers, but that communication needs to be circular to where they're returning back on what your concerns may be.
Yeah, and I would double down on one thing, Sean mentioned that I think is the most important. And I think it goes back to what we tried to focus on in our presentation, and it's all centered around ownership. The job you do is, of course, the job that pays the bills. And of course, if you're not passionate about it, it's a different discussion and different pivot and altogether just a little bit of a different answer. But you've got to be selfish about your career. You've got to own it. Um, I when I had started my career, I always felt that my growth and my success hinged on the number of years that I worked somewhere and the amount of experience I had. Now, of course, if you're just out of college, that's going to be true no matter where you go. Experience is something that we all kind of have to get. We have to mature. But once you kind of get a few years under your belt, I think that's where time isn't really the measurement stick, if you will. That's where those that are serious about being selfish in their career growth are going to excel, and those that trust others to do it for them won't. And it took me a long time to realize that no one was going to do it for me. I had to write down my goals. I had to know what I wanted to achieve, how long I wanted to give it. And if I wasn't able to get it under the manager or the organization that I was in, after a certain amount of time, I had to look somewhere else. And I think that if you leave this, presentation today with anything, the most important thing is that, no one is going to do this better than you. Mentors, coaches, they're all there as a helping hand, but they will not own it for you. And I think the faster that we come to that realization that we are in charge of our own destiny, the faster you will succeed and grow in the areas that you want to.
Maybe just to chime in on that a little bit more, in regards to goals, and Ed talked briefly about passion earlier, and follow things that you're passionate about. Well, you can always set goals for things that you are passionate about and work with your manager to identify those goals and to make sure that they are things that are aligning. I know I worked with Ed at one point. I work with my current manager to identify things that I am truly passionate about, that I can have those be my own development goals, and to receive the guidance and coaching, the mentorship that I need to see a bit more about how those align with my own personal career journey. This was a project that we were part of a bigger team. And so this wasn't our day job, but there were numerous things that happened as part of this project that did have strong parallels to our day jobs. And so we're able to leverage goals and career growth based on our experience with this particular project. And it's being able to identify how those can help you grow as a person, set those as goals, but then also don't let it conflict with what your day job is. Realize that an extracurricular project like this is usually something that's part of a team. And so there are times where you need to rely on the team to carry things while you focus on the day job. And then conversely, there are times where you can carry the rest of the team while someone is focusing on another aspect of this. But the coaching, the mentoring, and seeing people that have been able to achieve success and getting their advice on how to align the goals with your day job, I think is an important attribute.
I think we have time for a couple more questions, guys. But switching careers from non-corporate America to corporate America and in the new field altogether. And I think this can translate into, any movement within the pre-sales industry, right? Because there's so many things that we can do as pre-sales. There's so many verticals that we can work at. What is your best advice, especially being concerned with not losing credibility with peers?
Yeah, for that one, and whoever wrote that one, I think first, well done. The fact that you're willing to stretch yourself and go from one industry to another, it's hard, right? I mean, me personally, before I was in pre-sales, I was in post-sales for 6 years. And I had never sold anything other than chocolate candy bars to my neighbors to raise money for baseball. Right. I mean, that's the extent of my sales experience before this. And so I think, concerned about using credibility with your peers, one of the things that I admire, and I think this is where you're gonna see who's gonna support you in this change and who's not. And if the peers that are gonna kind of give you a hard time about what you're doing, I think maybe you need to think about, you can keep them as associates, but maybe it's not people that you want to hang around with, right? And continue to inspire you to do something. I think if you look at what's going on in LinkedIn right now, right, and other mediums, people are changing jobs everywhere. Everybody's doing it right now. We've had these 2 years to think about what do we really want out of life. But I don't think you should be as concerned about losing credibility with your peers as you should be concerned about who are you going to surround yourself with. I think the more, if you surround whoever, like I think it's been said, whoever the top 5 people that you associate with, more than likely that's who you're going to become. And so as you're transitioning, go look for those people that are successful and simply just spend time with them. They will elevate you because they want to be with you and you want to be with them. The haters out there, you don't need them. Negative energy, it's not going to help you evolve, and they can go off and be negative in their own space. They don't need to bring you into it.
Yeah, and
Haters gonna hate, right?
That's right.
And you will quickly realize those that are supportive of you and those that are not. And if folks aren't supportive of your personal decisions to make pivots in your career, and because you have passion in a new area and you want to grow in a new area, then maybe those people are kind of stuck in their own way. Maybe they secretly wish to make those changes themselves. But at the end of the day, you need to follow your heart, and you need to follow what you truly want to do and not worry about losing credibility. You will never lose credibility for trying to learn something new. In fact, over time, you will grow in so many new ways that you'll surpass anyone that is trying to hold you back.
And I'll just chime in with, always draw on your experiences. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. There is some valuable life lesson that you can leverage, especially in a pre-sales role. I've been in pre-sales for 20 plus years, and I've covered multiple different market segments, going from commercial accounts into healthcare, and now with the cloud focus. But there is always something I can draw on from prior experience that is relevant, even outside of work. So look for those life experiences that can help you move forward.
This is great advice, guys. I honestly could spend more hours with you today here talking about this. This was a great session. We want to hear from you guys, the audience. How did we do? How much was today's content? How valuable was today's content to you? From the previous poll, we see that we have a lot of individual contributors and people coming into pre-sales. We really appreciate you being here and asking so many nice questions. We still have questions that couldn't be answered, but we can reach out for those. And please feel free to reach out to any of us here if you want to ask one-to-one question. We'd love to help you out. The second question there is, what type of pre-sales collective webinars are you most likely to attend? So please give us your feedback before you go today. If you're not on Slack yet, do join Slack. We have that's where our community is the most vibrant. You can talk direct with other people one-to-one, or you can participate in the groups. We have a lot of interesting channels there according to the subject matter you want to discuss. We're over 8,000 members now on Slack, so that's really great. It's a lot of people from all over the world with whom you can connect. So make sure you're there as well. And yeah, I'm really happy hosting the session. Happy to have you guys. Ed, Sean, Michael, thank you so much for the great session. Thank you to the Pre-Sales Collective for allowing us to be here. Do you guys have any final words before we depart?
Great job, Amanda. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Hope everybody has a nice weekend, and yeah, catch you on the next session. Thank you so much.
Bye all.
Thank you. Bye.